Hi, everybody, and welcome to TFT Tarot for Today, Divine Dabblings with Oberon and Banshee. It's New Year's. Well, it's actually January 2nd, but hey, Happy New Year's. And of course, this is Oberon with the outlook on the emotional exchanges. And this week, I'm going to do a program that will just focus on our look into the year ahead. And so we are just going to draw cards for each sign of the zodiac, but their meanings or positions will be a little different. I'll get into that in a minute. We're going to start with an opening oracle, and hopefully it's really good for 2026. Yay, Happy New Year. Once again, we're taking it from the Love Oracle by Christophania. I think Banshee got this for me. So it's a pretty little deck, and I haven't used it a whole lot, if at all. It needed me to think about it a little bit. So I think I've done thinking, and we're going to just go ahead and pull a card and see what we get. So here goes, everybody. And, oh, nice. Optimism. Number 9. All right. And of course, it is about being optimistic, or about learning how to be optimistic. Let's position that there. Allowing for optimism. And in terms of relationships, the potential lies in being aware of the impact of one's own attitude within the relationship. So that's a little foggy, but at any rate, I'm going to read from the booklet. We decide whether to look at the world through positive or negative glasses. Depending on our view of the world, we inwardly adopt a worrying or an optimistic attitude of expectation. Depending on which attitude I adopt, my inner attitude also influences my environment. If I only see the negative aspects of my relationship or my partner, this will have a different effect on my relationship in the long run than if I see my partner or the relationship in a positive light. How do you currently see your partner or your relationship? And how does he or she currently see you and the relationship? What is your general attitude towards love and relationships? And what is your partner's attitude? What does the theme of optimism tell you about your relationship and your attitude? If this card is positively related to future predictions, then it tells you that you can and should be optimistic about your question. So I think, of course, that it's probably, just in general saying we are looking at the year ahead and all our relationships with the idea that we can be honest and open and admit things to each other, or have no fear about how it is we express ourselves. And so in that sense, we are so that's optimism. All right, so the reading I'm about to perform is for the astrological signs of the zodiac, beginning with Aries, and they are good for sun, moon, or rising signs. And I'm drawing 3 cards. The first one is, what will bring emotional happiness this year? And that's the overall most general idea there. The second card is your hardest or a hardest emotional challenge you may face this year. And then the final card is the best way you can bring joy or happiness to someone. And that could be, variable. Could even be yourself, I suppose. All right. Aries, Sun, Moon, or Rising. It's the Emperor reversed. Being able to let go of some things and to not feel like you have to be in control of everything, especially because of your emotional relationship with it. Like just basically letting some things happen the way they may happen without your influence. That's going to bring you happiness, realizing you're letting go of maybe controlling or managing others. All right. Strength reversed. So your hardest challenge, emotionally speaking, is of course related to that. It's the idea that you try to push your weight around a little bit. You try to force things happen in a way you find favorable to yourself, even when you're not necessarily very involved there. So that's going to be your big challenge, is kind of learning to approach with softer power rather than more projective power. The best way you can bring joy or happiness to someone. It's the reverse Two of Coins. Maybe you have to help them with their chaos in their life. I mean, maybe there's some management or balance issues going on with somebody you really care about. And maybe you have to sympathize with that and maybe be willing to help them a little bit. It obviously seems like it's a relationship you may be involved in a little bit. Right, that was Aries. We will move on to Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising. All right. What's going to bring you that happiness this year? It's probably with the Tower reverse, realizing that you finally did hit the rock bottom emotionally, and that maybe you realize you were kind of stalkerish. Maybe you were really kept trying to press an issue emotionally over and over again, and you just didn't want to take no for an answer. And so what will bring you emotional happiness is realizing you're getting away from this pattern, because that's the Tower reversed, is a pattern of making the same mistakes over and over again. Your actual challenge is the Lovers reversed, and this may be realizing that you don't feel like you're properly suited to a relationship you're in, or that maybe you need to move the relationship from more physical pleasure aspects to maybe something deeper, more spiritual, or more indicative of a longer lasting relationship. So maybe for some of us, we are having a relationship that could go either way at this point. There's good ways to see either could happen, but you want to make sure there's continuity. And then finally, the best way you can bring joy or happiness to someone else, and it's the Wheel of Fortune. And so figuring out how you can do unexpected and lucky things for them, or bring to them, or allow to happen for them, being in places where unexpected, happy, romantic things could happen. Go fishing. All right, we'll move on to Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Rising. And I do hope everybody had a nice New Year's Eve, and I hope that yesterday was a good day. You can also still view Banshee and my extra special edition of her show, The Material Matters. That was on yesterday, and it kind of is just like a little extra um, card pulls for each sign of the zodiac. So that's on our YouTube channel as well. Good luck in the year ahead, financially and economically. All right, so Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Rising. It's the Ten of Coins reversed. So what may bring emotional happiness this year is probably a little bit of creating a differentiation in your relationship with family. It could mean a lot of different things. I mean, it could mean for young people that maybe they're actually moving out and they are away from direct family experience. This may not be a bad thing, but it may be challenging in some respects. But if it's bringing you emotional happiness, then it may feel like, there's sort of a sense of independence then indicated from the family that could be inferred here as what that emotional happiness is about. What is the hardest challenge? To not let things stagnate, especially in this emotional realm here, that maybe there's a relationship that will wither and rot because we're not paying enough attention, or we're avoiding certain conversations. That's your challenge. What how can you best find or bring joy and happiness to someone? And it's the Tower reversed again. And so maybe it's once again realizing that we have to break out of really bad patterns of things, and that we're making the same mistakes in some relationships, that maybe we're being it's a tower analogy. We're trying to build up something, and then we're too easy to try and destroy it because we're not getting our actual way here, or we're not feeling fulfilled enough in the relationship. Stop that negative patterns. All right, that was Gemini. We will now move on to Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising. All right, what will bring you emotional happiness this year? It's the Page of Cups. Something new's happening. You may be inclined to bring some new aspects to your life, love wise. Maybe it's a new relationship, or maybe it's something that sets up a new kind of beginning for the one you're already in. There's a lot of pleasant emotions here. There's a lot of reaching out. There's a lot of uh, a sense of combined mystical feeling about your relationship. So what will be that hardest challenge then in this year ahead? And it's another page. It's the reversed Page of Swords. And so maybe the way this is going, this is also involving the quality of a little bit of awkwardness, of about maybe not necessarily approaching things in a mannerly manner, but maybe being a little bit more provocative in certain ways, and not necessarily being diplomatic, but being a little bit more on the blunt side. And that could just be in general about any relationships. But how will you find the best way to bring joy or happiness to someone? And it's also a court card. It's the reverse Knight of Wands. And maybe you have to let them be more assertive in certain ways. Maybe they're not feeling confident. You have to give them opportunities to feel like they're more in charge of something that maybe is important in your conversation or relationship with them. All right, Cancer. We will move on to Leo. Sun, Moon, or Rising. Leo. Right, card one. What will bring you emotional happiness this year? And of course, it could be a lot of things, but this may be a key thing. It's the Six of Swords and it's reversed. And maybe realizing that you're not really ready yet to move away from a particular situation that you found, emotionally troublesome. Maybe what will be rewarding or what will bring you happiness is realizing that you don't have to totally abandon or move away from a particular relationship, that there may still be a way to rectify the matter, no matter whose side it's on. Now, what is your hardest or a hardest emotional challenge in this year? It's the Queen of Cups. And I suppose that this could be saying really maintaining emotional calm and dignity in relationships. This may be about a broader range of relationships. It could be about your personal relationship, your primary one if there is one. But I sort of feel it's more general. I get the sense that this could be about, sticking with a situation of some sort that impacts on your emotional comfort and relations with people is also involving, this is a challenge to remain calm about it all. Okay, how will you bring joy or happiness to someone? By showing that the feelings in your heart are your strongest ability and your strongest character, and that you're willing to work in the dignified way that we're talking about here. So a lot of this really seems to be very self-fulfilling, that, there may be a relationship that you're determined to kind of, stick with and not move away from. And you have to maintain your own balance and sense of calm or serenity with your emotions. And that maybe leading with your heart, though, is the way through this. So good luck with that, Leo. I really do wish you luck, Leo. All right, we will move on to Virgo then. Sun, Moon, or Rising. Oh, and by the way, I'm using the Scorpio Sea Tarot, which is a lovely deck. Uh, and of course, since it has that relationship to emotional qualities like Scorpio, I think it's a great deck to use here. All right, so once again, this is for Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising. And our friend the Tower reversed has shown up again. What will bring you emotional happiness this year? And once again, Virgo, you too may have that situation where you're realizing what the patterns are in the relationships, and how you might have tried to be more domineering or prevent, things from going a certain way, but that was uber control, and it probably contributed to why they broke down. And yet still you persisted. But maybe now what will bring you happiness is realizing these patterns are over. And you know what? They could be about patterns of relationships that you weren't the causal agent, but maybe somehow you were in the backlash. So it's all over, perhaps. It will bring you happiness. Now, in terms of your hardest challenge, it's about justice. You may have to find that maybe you have to allow for a certain amount of fairness or good judgment in your decisions, especially if it may be concerning that over there. The idea that, patterns that persisted needed, to be expedited in a certain way. Let's move on then. The best way you can bring joy or happiness to someone, and I guess it's the Four of Wands. Promise them a happy home. Promise them some sort of sense of belonging in a situation, and maybe there's a seasonal aspect, like maybe you put in a good season's work and now it's time to understand what those rewards are. It's really a card about family and connection. Good luck with that, Virgo. And now we'll move on to Libra. Sun, Moon, or Rising. Sleepy cards. Libra, Sun, Moon, or Rising. What will be bringing you emotional happiness this year? Ooh, Ten of Swords. Something's over. It's over in a big way. It may be a situation that was really bad emotionally, Libra, and you may have felt that. Whatever it is, the best way was to get away from it. And so to realize that there was something after you got out of this bad situation. Now, what will be the hardest emotional challenge for you? And it's the reversed Eight of Swords. And maybe there's a residue of realizing that some of that was an illusion, but not only that, it may have been an illusion that you allowed to exist in a certain way. That maybe because it was more comfortable feeling like somebody else had control over you, but they didn't. And you managed to, kind of pull yourself away from that. But the challenge now is realizing that you could have always done it and it didn't have to go to that extreme emotionally if that's what happened, Libra. So the best way to bring joy or happiness to someone is Temperance reversed. And Temperance reversed could be saying that you love them warts and all. It could be saying too, really, that if you found that you may have been more of the disruptive balance in their life, maybe you work on that, and maybe you don't be that for that person. I know that's a little shaky there, but if you're really causing the problems for another person, then maybe if you care, you have to get away from that. You have to stop that. We'll move on to Scorpio. Sun, Moon, or Rising. All right, Scorpio, what will bring you emotional happiness this year, 2026? And it's the Nine of Cups. And maybe it's coming to the realization that the things that you thought brought you the most emotional or pleasurable sense were not really good for you. And so maybe what brings you happiness is realizing you don't need to be totally 110% happy to get through your life, that maybe some things aren't meant to be. And so coming to terms with that, especially if it's emotionally, realizing that sometimes you don't get what you really want, emotionally speaking, and you have to learn to live with that. Now, what will be your hardest challenge, as if that wasn't enough of one, but it's the upright Seven of Swords. And your challenge may be realizing that you can still have what you want, emotionally speaking, even if it might be that, but you might have to be a little bit more cunning about how you do it. Or maybe it's about being a better secret taker, that maybe what you want really works best when you're a little bit more covert about it. And I don't know if it's necessarily reclaiming this. It might be about something else. What's the best way you can bring joy or happiness to someone? It's the Lovers reversed. Well, if you love somebody, let them go. Let them know they're free. Maybe this is about, Scorpio, a marriage or a relationship that isn't working out, and that maybe people have to learn how to be honest with each other. Good luck with that. We'll move on to Sagittarius. Sun, Moon, or Rising. Realizing perhaps that your attainment is pretty much perfect, that you've kind of realized what you really wanted, Sagittarius. Realizing you have a perfect world, realizing that you're ready to move on for something new and different, and it will probably be just as good for you. Your challenge is realizing that what you want to manifest in the future, you can't wait for it to happen for itself, especially if it's emotional challenges like this, like a relationship or a potential. You have to be willing to make the growth happen instead of waiting for it to happen. It's not going to happen unless you do something. Now, the best way you can bring joy or happiness to someone, and it's great change. And so there may be something you have to really change about yourself or about what you're doing with that particular person. Maybe it's really coming to the realization that you've actually loved them more than they've realized or that you've realized. That was Sagittarius. Okay, we're going to move on to Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising. So what will bring emotional happiness this year for Capricorns? It's Judgment reversed. You may have to realize that, a lot of things you were putting faith in weren't true. And maybe when you realize a certain truth about something and that the impact is very different, emotionally speaking, it might bring happiness to you because you realize that you weren't believing something that was true. And I know that doesn't make sense on some levels, but sometimes realizing that you were accepting something else that wasn't true will harm you when you realize that. But maybe it can also make you feel better that you found out. Now, what is the challenge, emotionally speaking, a hard one for the year? It's the Ace of Wands. You may be trying to start up again with a friendship or something very important, an undertaking that involves enterprise, involves networking, involves a circle of friends maybe. And you're worried because it doesn't seem to have enough juice. If it's a specific friendship, you're feeling like you're losing them, like there's a lack of interest. Something's not pulling the ideas of, co-creation together. They're actually, not working out. So you have to apply more energy, especially in terms of emotions. The best way you can bring joy or happiness to someone, it's the Knight of Swords. Be tactful and diplomatic and graceful. Maybe be willing to have a dance with them, a dance of conversation or dialogue or spirit. It may be the beginning to understanding where things could go, the Knight is moving towards something, and it's probably moving towards an encounter that promises a strong friendship, if nothing else. That was Capricorn. We'll move on to Aquarius then. Sun, Moon, or Rising. Oh, that dang reverse tower. What will bring emotional happiness this year? Realizing that maybe you are breaking patterns. You know, I think a lot of this is in terms of that reflection of New Year's Eve and then maybe moving forward next year when we realize that we've had bad patterns in our relationships, trying to build them up and maybe making them more fearful towers of oppression, holding people back in some ways. We have to learn how to break those habits. Your hardest emotional challenge. It's the reverse Nine of Cups. And it may be realizing that you weren't meant for something. You weren't meant to have a certain sense of happiness. It might be coming to terms with what that's about. The idea that what will bring you happiness is learning you're getting beyond the patterns. But from an emotional point of view, it will still be hard for you, challenging this year to really accept yourself as a flawed human, because believe it or not, Aquarius, all of us are a little bit flawed. So, what can bring you happiness to someone? Well, I don't know. Maybe you have to sneak up on them. You know, this sort of pertains more to covert activity. If there's somebody who isn't aware you really care about them, even if you're not sure that they may care about you, you may want to just tell them you think about them and you care about them. You never know. It's just a good way to deal with it, being honest. You don't have to couch it in foiled romantic terms. Good luck, Aquarius. All right, finally, we're on Pisces. Sun, Moon, or Rising. Last sign of the Zodiac. Trying to make sure I don't get that tower again. All right, Pisces, what will bring you emotional happiness this year? It's the Hangman reversed. It may be the realization that if you thought you were giving up something for love or giving up something, making a sacrifice so that you might achieve something better, you may realize that you didn't need to do that or that you shouldn't have been doing that. It could be emotionally happier for you if you realize this is not a time for you to necessarily have to consider giving up something, especially if it's about being worthy for love. And so it may make you happy to feel that you don't have to be in love to be totally happy. You could be a single person, or you could have a relationship that has mixed qualities about it, but you could still be happy. Now, what is your hardest emotional challenge this year? It's the Empress. And so it may be a challenge to learn to really care about yourself, to really love yourself, and also maybe to love others too, even if, you don't have your perfect relationship with them, but you still want to care about them and show them that despite it all, you really do love them and will try to care for them. So finally then, Pisces, what is the best way that you can bring love or joy or happiness to someone? It's the reversed Ace of Cups. And I think it's saying, give it time. That maybe, Pisces, you might, in this particular situation, be a little anxious, a little impatient, and that sometimes you have to let things grow more gradually. Ace of Cups is about love and relationships, but reverse, it's saying that maybe it wants to go slower or it's having some delays. It needs to come to some acceptance. This could all be tied in together. I don't know. It sort of has a feel to it. I'm not going to speculate too much there, but I will say that I appreciate you all coming. I hope this is a good reading for the year ahead, just kind of like a short reading. Of course, I'll always have the weekly short ones too that will talk about more specifics, or I may be changing the reading style, so check it out. But don't forget to watch the happy hour tomorrow at our normal time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then Banshee's Material Matters will be Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, we're here live in the afternoon for our second live stream of the new year. Our Sunday live stream, which promises to be quite busy from 2 to 4 p.m. Do come early, because I'm sure a lot of people will be showing up. They always do. Have a happy new year, and thank you for supporting us at TFT. Bye now.